I watch movies sometimes, illegally. I watch things on YouTube like quizzes and quizzes. Shut up. Quizzes. You already said quizzes.
Hello everybody, welcome. Thanks for spending some time with us here in Cinema 4. So helping you clap this session are the beautiful people on the stage. When you came in, you heard the intro for The Muppet Show, which is basically what this session is all about. My name is Kermit, and our special guests for today will introduce themselves, starting with the lovely gentleman on my left. Julien.
Am I Gonzo?
If you want, but I'll have to shoot you through the ceiling afterwards.
You have been dreaming of that for years.
For years, yeah.
So I'm Julien Borde. I am head of SVOD at France Television. I spent 20 years in that business, running children and youth content, both first for Disney and then for France TV. I am now in that on-demand new universe, and it's fascinating. And it's my first time at CMC. I am a CMC virgin, and I'm really happy to discover and to have a better understanding of the UK market.
Thank you very much, Julien. Linda?
Hi, I'm Linda Szyminski. I'm from PBS, which is the public broadcaster in the United States. If I were a Muppet, I would be Beaker, sadly, or maybe Animal. Maybe Oscar the Grouch. I don't know. It's a tough one. But I am in charge of programming, production, and development for kids at PBS. And I have worked in the kids' TV area pretty much my entire career, first at Nick, then at Cartoon, now at PBS. And I've basically dedicated my career to making sure that things are funny for kids. And so what brings me here to CMC, I think, is, well, it's the fact that you all speak English, and it's a good festival to go to if you're an American and you slept through your language classes. But actually, I like coming to this conference because we do things very differently in the U.S. than people do here, and I just love hearing about how people are thinking and what people are trying to do, and there actually are a lot of similarities as well.
Thank you, Linda, for answering all the questions I had in the entire session in your introduction.
The Muppet one was you didn't even ask that one, but I answered it.
Okay, we move to Pauline.
I'm Pauline McNamara. I work with RTE in Ireland, public service broadcaster, and I am a wannabe Rolf. I'm very bad at the piano, but I really want to be better. I commission programming for all kids under 18, and animation and live action. We have an RTE Junior preschool channel, which we commission both live action and licensed animation for. And we're also interested in programs for 7 to 11s and some for 12 to 18s. This isn't my first time here. I speak English, but I am struggling because I've just come back from 2 weeks in Italy. So I've spent 2 weeks really trying hard to find words of Italian, and now I find I'm struggling to find the English. But it is always a great conference to come to because you go away refreshed, having listened to everybody else's thoughts, experiences, inspirations, what people are doing, and I always go home refreshed with new inspiration.
Thank you, Pauline. Shaunette.
Hello. My name is Shaunette Roberts. I'm Content Commissioner for S4C, and I commission children's programmes and young people's programmes, and also education and any kind of education offshoot. S4C is a Welsh language broadcaster. We're not international. We are actually in the UK, but we do broadcast only in Welsh. And we have the Q strand is our preschool strand for under 6, and we also have the Stunch strand, which is for around 7 to 12s or so. I probably have to say Miss Piggy, just because she's such a star.
Yeah. And that was my Muppet.
I'm glad you got this far before. Yeah. And CMC, I've been coming here for 10 years, I think, as a freelancer, and now in my job, I've been at SVLC for 4 years. I was at the BBC for, I started off in 1990. But CMC has always been a fantastic place to be, just because it's about the content, it's about what kids are doing, not just on screens, but in books, in games. Everything new I have learned or known about has come from this conference, because kids are always doing things first.
Thank you very much. And then, last but not least, Deirdre.
Right, so I can't be Miss Piggy, damn it. So I'm going to be Animal, because Animal's loud. And most Australians are loud. Is there Tim in the room? I have, as some of you may know, recently moved from ABC in Australia to Chorus in Canada, which is an amazing opportunity because they have 10 channel brands. It's an extraordinary portfolio. So I'm very lucky enough to manage both the programming production for that portfolio. But I'm relatively new, so I've got some Canadian friends in the audience who will tell me if I get it wrong. Thank you.
Thank you all. So I'm sure you will all agree that we've, for the season's final of our Muppet Show, we've brought the 5 best contestants of the whole season together in one session. So let's hear it for our contestants tonight. Linda, you, since you are Beaker, as far as I remember, Beaker only goes like beep, 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 beep or something, no? He doesn't really speak, does he?
Yeah.
Yeah. But maybe you can sing us a song at the end of the session. But before you do so, why did you decide to come to CMC, and what do you like here, or what are your impressions so far? Is it the first time you come? Have you been here before? Tell us everything.
I came last year, and last year it was curiosity. This year I thought about it, and I found myself 1 year at Kids Screen sort of questioning why was I there, and just calling out for help. And it was Alex Wiseman who said, a wise man said to me, she came up to me and she said, if you really want to go to a good conference, you should go to the CMC, because they really do cover the issues, they really do talk about things in a very smart way, and I thought that sounded good. And so I came last year and I decided, yes, that's, there is sort of a sense of wanting to understand what's going on, not just to promote shows, but to think about the issues, to understand what are the trends, what are the important things to think about, what are the concerns, and to sort of get a number of ideas out on the table and then go home and think about them. So I found this sort of an interesting chance to sort of, it's sort of like the grad school version of, if Kids Screen is elementary school, this is sort of the grad school version of thinking about the issues. So that's really what I've been getting out of this. If not for the jet lag, I probably would be making a lot of progress. But I feel like Greg does a great job of asking a lot of good questions, and you all do a good job of making us answer them, and so that's why I'm here.
Okay, thank you very much. Deirdre, what about you?
I particularly wanted to come to CMC this year. I think moving to Canada with some fresh eyes and perspectives, there seems to be a lot of focus on US partnerships, but for me to sort of dial up that creative distinctiveness that I think we really need to do to get back where we need to be, it's partnerships with UK and Europe that are where we're going to find that. So it's been great to sort of be inspired by new ideas and creative partners, but also to get a better insight into some of the partnerships out of UK and Europe that we can pursue. So the conversations have started, and a little bit of inspiration to take home is a really good thing.
Thank you. Shaunette, help us out here.
About CMC?
CMC, what's your relationship with CMC? What do you like about CMC?
Well,
what do you hate about CMC? Share it with us.
I think it's just the quality of the sessions, I think, is very, very good. I know they're very well produced. I've been a producer here, and I've been working with Greg and a lot of the others on the advisory board. A lot of work goes into the preparation and finding the right people and just getting the right mix and the right theme, because this year's theme is diversity and in all its forms. And it's just really interesting to be somewhere where we can just, take time to have lots of different sessions that look at a huge number of different things. And a recent development is the market element that's coming in. So that also helps get people from all over the world to come here.
Yeah.
So yes, I'm a big fan.
Well, it's definitely true. I've spoken to a lot of people over the past days, and everybody seems to agree that the quality of the sessions here is quite high, starting with this one, of course. And also comparisons were made with Kids Screen, and people seem to have a common understanding that a lot of valuable information is provided and shared here by people on the panels or just in conversations down the hall. So, yes, keep coming, everybody. Huh? Right. Most of you, I don't know if most of you here are actually in creative jobs making content, and then obviously, well, probably some of you are, some of you aren't. But those of you who are probably interested in hearing from these people. If they want to buy your show, we'll come to that later. But B, also what they are looking for, what the main focus on their respective networks is. So why don't we just ask them? Julien, what trends do you see in content specifically for your network?
Thank you, Kermit, for that question. The trend that we see, and France is quite specific because we only do animation in kids' content. We have a very strong CODA system, which gives a lot of power to our animation industry. So we are really focusing on animation on every channel, on France Télévisions, but also on every competitor channel, and TF1 and M6 are doing the same. And in animation, what is happening is that preschool is stronger than ever. We get big ratings on preschool shows, and I believe it's because kids are leaving animation earlier than ever, because you've got so many content available anytime. They can go to family content on their own tablets when they want, and they do that. They can start watching Netflix series at 10-year-olds, and they do that. Yeah. So I have the feeling in animation, our industry is skewing younger than ever. We have big shows like Pyjamask, like A Doji by our friends of BBC Worldwide, which are doing extremely well. So we will be happy to continue to search for good preschool content here in the UK, and the UK is one of the countries we prefer to work with in terms of preschool content.
Are you now talking with your head as a VOD person or in general for the channel?
In general for the channel. The channel Children and Youth Unit is now headed by Tiffaine de Raconel, who is managing the department, and we have a team of 15 person who you can find on the markets. So for international content, Claire Heinrich and Alexandre Hénin are in charge of looking for content. They acquire something like 20 to 30 shows a year in preschool, kids, mainly animation, but not only, because we have got more and more available blocks on France 4. Yeah. So those are the good person to contact. In the on-demand universe, what I love is we didn't make any toddler preschool shows, because in France we were not authorized to do that. We can do preschool content starting at 4, but on YouTube and on VOD we are authorized to go younger, and this is what works. So we've got very powerful YouTube channels. Little Brown Bear one, Charlie one, they rank very well, and we make things like 10-12 million views a month with those very young preschool properties. Wow. So we love them, and we love it when it's non-verbal also, because it travels so well. And for us it's a way to start to work internationally.
Yeah. Okay, very interesting. Pauline, how is that working on RTE? What's your content focus for the moment?
A lot of our focus at the moment is on preschool because we're trying to grow the RTE Junior channel. It's only 3 years old. So in terms of what we're looking for, I mean, really what we're focused on is looking for ways to tell Irish children's stories. Our audience have access to all of the UK channels, a lot of the other channels, like 30 or 40 children's channels. So what we're really trying to do is to try or to tell Irish children's stories. We are looking for, we obviously have a huge and fabulous animation sector at home who bring us fabulous programs which have, an Irish slant, but we're also open to giving Irish companies an opportunity to jump on board as co-producers on international IP projects. In terms of, you were asking about trends there, one of the trends that's kind of emerging just through audience research on our junior channel is that kids are looking for longer format content, which is kind of a surprise to us because we kind of had been going towards short format, or sticking with short form and going shorter, and we'd been commissioning kind of 2-minute series, 1 minute episodes, etc. But what's kind of coming through is the fact that they are actually looking for longer format. So what we're looking at the moment is through our in-house production, looking at magazine format for preschool. Kind of stretching programs out to maybe half-hour duration, and block scheduling programming. So maybe giving 2 or 3 episodes of the 10 or 15-minute programs to try and address that. And we'll look to do that in the autumn. Drama co-production is also something that in terms of this group here, we watch and weep we come away really inspired from sessions like CMC, but we look at what channels who have much more resource and finance at their fingertips are doing, and then we go home and try and find ways to do that much more cost effectively. But one kind of area that kids are always looking for and that we can't really do we can't do extensively at home is drama. So co-production in drama is something that we are open to. We are kind of developing a couple of co-pros with Australian and Canadian companies, and we are always open to that, particularly for 7 to 11s, but also for the younger audiences.
Thank you very much. Sinead, on S4, so first of all, as a Belgian, I have to congratulate you for beating our ass at the football. Yeah. I almost forgot that.
It has been absolutely amazing. It really has. It really is just overwhelming. Yes, great. Come on. Yeah, there we are.
Specifically for S4C, what are the things that are going really well, or that you are doing really well as a channel for the moment, or as a network for the moment, and what are the things where you say there are areas where we could improve or where we could use more content?
Yeah. Well, very similar to Pauline, really. We have the same kind of concerns. For Q is our preschool brand, and it's like a national treasure. I mean, people just love it, kids love it, parents love it. It's very, very popular, and is on air for 8 hours a day. I mean, that's a repeat pattern, but so I'm often looking for content for Q. It's a mix of acquisitions and live action. Again, like RTE, we're very, very keen to have a lot of live action, a lot of indigenous projects on screen. Around 75% of my funding goes for original programmes, live action for Q, and around 25% goes on acquisitions or co-productions. And then for the older age group, the ratio is higher again, so around 90% of the funding goes on original programming. So that for us is a really, really important part of it, that we show Welsh children kids like them or kids not like them, and just have a window on the world, and just to show them the lives maybe that reflect their own. So like it's interesting you were saying about in France. I've noticed this on French TV when you go on holiday and so on. it would be, because of money, we could be having a lot more animation. It would be a lot cheaper, but you sort of then miss out on the indigenous content. So as far as things go at the moment, we're trying to keep that ratio as it is. In terms of the type of content, on KU in the last year or so and coming up, I've been focusing on two things. One is documentary, so we've had 4 preschool documentary shows, which have done really, really well, and comedy, so I've been focusing on that. For the older age group, where it's as much comedy as you can get, or as much as you can afford, and then with a lot of a couple of live shows, and we've got daily news program. It's a whole mixed bag, really. Anything, just to have a lot of different genres on screen. And the digital side is really important for us as well. And I've forgotten the question now. But trends you were asking about, wasn't it? I mean, the main trend for us, I suppose, would be how kids are viewing. So S4C is a public service broadcaster. We're also on BBC iPlayer, and we have our own on-demand service as well. Now, on BBC iPlayer, 78% of all Welsh views is for kids' content, which is phenomenal. So programmes like, we've co-produced Bing, for example, and Bodge, and those big animated shows, and they're just, thousands and thousands of views. And now, whether those are Welsh language children watching the Welsh version, or whether they just like, Bing in any language at all, and that's really interesting for us, and that's where they're going.
Okay, thank you very much. Deirdre, before answering the question, if you still remember what the question was, about trends on your channel and what you're doing well and whatnot, maybe you can explain us what channels Chorus actually have.
So let's get some information on the table. So, I might just mention too that at the moment Chorus is in the process of transition, of bringing 2 companies together. So Shaw and Chorus have come together. It will end up as an amazing media company with a conventional free-to-air channel, 45 specialty channels, kids publishing. It's an incredible bringing together of these 2 organisations. But so there's still a lot that's being worked out, so I'll just flag it with that. So a lot of what I'm telling you today is sort of my first impressions. But one thing we have decided quite quickly is to make sure that all original production comes through the 3 flagship channels. So very quickly, they're Treehouse, which we're expanding the target audience up to 6 years of age. So Treehouse is our #1 preschool and #1 2 to 11 years channel in Canada. It's incredibly successful, so I'm not allowed to ruin it. So that will be for preschool up to 6. Teletoon, which is obviously an animated channel but servicing 5 to 9-year-olds. We are actually making sure that we have that upper end as well. It's incredibly successful. And then YTV, which is really our grand flagship local channel, which is a mixture of animation and live action. I'm saying that that's now 6 to 12 years plus family. It has a huge opportunity for us, and I do think the UK-Europe potential around partnering on live action and family content post 7 p.m. on that channel. The reason why we've decided to put our original production into those 3 is because they have the broadest distribution. It's a great way of building audiences. We can actually utilise that content across the portfolio, but we feel that it really needs to have the spotlight put on those first run hours when they launch in Canada. So it's a really good thing. Trends is interesting because I'm new to the territory, so I'm not so much talking about the trends that I see there, because you're seeing, the gradual decline of linear audiences. It's the same as everywhere. A shift of primetime kids audiences to some unusual content, mostly factual based, but we think that we'd like to set the trends working with partners in the future. So very quickly, 3 areas: live action, soft serialization. I think everybody, including myself at ABC, we leapt to these grand epic serial sagas, and now we need to come back from that a little bit. Sophisticated storytelling, I still think that we're not providing the level of intrigue and excitement in complex storytelling in television. We've kind of pushed that over to movies and books. We need to bring that back, particularly in live action. Real family relationships. There's a trend that stopped I don't know why Australians still know the Waltons and say goodnight, John Boy, at the bottom of the earth. It's like, party of 5, 8 is enough. There used to be some extraordinary family relationships, and all the research that's telling us, and has been for the last year, the generation gap has disappeared, and kids want to learn life lessons from what we make and provide to them. So they're learning life lessons from The Bachelorette. Now that concerns me. I'd much rather have, and that's terrible, like what a lesson for young girls, really. And The Bachelor works both ways, but I think we need to start building family relationships and real life situations into some of the live action that we're doing. I think it will go gangbusters. Let's put it in prime time. Modern Family is doing a wonderful job of doing that in the comedy space, but I'm not seeing anything in the drama area. So I do think particularly a UK partner and Canada partner can nail that, and take risks with comedy. I won't go on for too long, I promise. I don't know if you've seen Little Lunch, that I can take no credit for at the ABC. It's been picked up in Canada, which is great. I hope it gets a partner in the UK. It's made in a mock doc style, which I know has been done in adult a lot, but it's just charming. It effectively tells stories through straight-to-camera dialogue, about what happens at recess, play lunch, whatever you call it, around the world. It's just charming. Made by adult comedy producers, the producers of Upper Middle Bogan. Just love saying that. Upper Middle Bogan. And we need to take some risks. So if Canada and the UK and Europe can't take risks, I don't think anybody can in that format. Old school preschool, there's so much sophisticated, beautiful animation. When I see something with charm like Hey Dougie, you just love it because you think, yay! There's a very simple, wonderful character-based charm about that series. But in Canada, I think we need a play school. We need human beings on screen doing something that's just for Canada. It could travel as a format, but I think in that preschool area, that's my priority, and it will be a local-based initiative. And animation with more heart is my new trend. We say it a lot, but what does it mean? And I had the great privilege of talking to Craig Bartlett, the creator of Hey Arnold, recently, and he talked a lot about why he felt that was such an important show. It's my favourite animated show. And he talked about the incorporation of sadness. He said, Hey Arnold wouldn't have that emotional connection with 50-year-olds the way it does if it hadn't had that light and shade. So Arnold wasn't always happy. He didn't resolve everything in his life in an 11-minute story with a buddy comedy. Hey, it's so much animation. I think we've got into this sort of rut, creative rut, where it's the same. Feels a bit like wallpaper to me. So where are those sort of dramas that are animated, or sort of very much a live action approach to animation? I'd love to see a bit more long form storytelling in animation that goes beyond 11 minutes. So they're the trends I want to start. If anybody wants to join me, get on the bus. There you go. Is that it? I did it. Done. Thank you.
Thank you, Deirdre. Linda, what's working really well for PBS, and where are you still looking for alternatives or new ideas?
Well, we've taken on we never left long form, so we've been sticking pretty much with half-hour shows that are usually 2:11s. Sometimes they're full half hour, and we looked really old-fashioned for a while everyone was going towards short form. But the good thing for us was that 11 minutes allow you to do some character development, and we're really trying to sort of find that sweet spot when you combine narrative, curriculum, and humor. And I think what's made us different from a lot of people is that we do have to have curriculum. And I've never seen that as a bad thing. I've always seen it as a fun thing because, one thing I do know about kids is they like to learn. Our audience is between the ages of 2 and 8, and it's really around 9 that they start thinking that they've had enough school. So it's at 8 they're still excited to learn. And so it's given us a good excuse to have curriculum. One of the interesting trends I've noticed is that people have been walking in and pitching shows, and the curriculum is play. And I always think, well, if there's one thing we don't need to teach kids, it's how to play. We need to give them the time to go play, but we really don't need, they could teach us how to play. So so I feel like that's kind of a funny curriculum to go in with. So I haven't been going after things with the play curriculum, but I feel like showing kids playing is a good thing. So so we have been making sure that that's in our shows. We've had a lot of luck with shows like Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood, which is a very popular show. I'm convinced that kids are just looking for an explanation of how the world works. And Daniel Tiger basically is that. It's a show about how the world works, but not about the scientific thing. It's really the emotional aspect of how the world works. And if you're mean to someone, they won't be happy. If they're mean to you, you're going to want to figure out why. So it's basically stories about those little moments in life that you'd like to understand more about. So those kinds of shows have worked. We've also had a lot of luck with what we would call STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. We've done a lot of STEM shows recently. Not because we're fulfilling any particular mandate, but they actually work pretty well for stories. We're also, we're trying to capture more diversity in our shows. We're trying to make sure all American kids see themselves somewhere on our air. So the American population is very diverse, and the kids between the ages of 0 and 10 are way more diverse than adults between the ages of 40 plus, say. So it's been an interesting experience trying to capture that, trying to find the creators with different backgrounds. And another thing that we're trying to do is talk more to the audience, the part of the audience that is not the wealthy white audience. We're trying to talk more to kids in need and families in need. And what we found is that if we try to tell those kids that all problems can be solved by magic and wishing, it's not good. So we're really trying to empower kids with sort of a, again, how the world works, real approaches to actual problems, but in a humorous way. And we're trying to depict more, sort of more optimism, more enthusiasm, the idea that you can be passionate about anything, whatever it is you're interested in, that's good, and role model how to talk about it, how to capture that kind of enthusiasm about just things in general. And so capturing all that has also been good for us. So that's something that seems to work on our air. And then finally, as far as curriculum goes, we've tried to keep people from walking in and saying, okay, this is a show about math, or just to combine curriculum areas in different ways. And so now we've got a few shows that we're working on that are focused on community and creativity, or just like unexpected curriculum areas that turn out to go well together. So we've been experimenting in what we can do to make curriculum fun for the not just for the viewers, but for the adults working on it. And we do spend a lot of time thinking about the viewers and what they need, which is good, because if you're mostly trying to make the toy companies happy, it can be kind of a drag. But if you're just thinking about what do the kid viewers need, and how can you do things for them, it gives you more of a purpose. So that's what we've been thinking about lately.
Very clear. Thank you, Linda. So
that's a good question, Joe.
Yes,
that all right?
of course.
Do you get presented a lot of programs that are sort of heavily anchored or centered in commercial programs? Does that come in to you, or are people aware that that's not going to be something that PBS really...
Not too much. The bigger problem is people come in and they pitch the curriculum very enthusiastically, and they pitch it for 25 minutes, and then they spend 3 minutes on the characters. And it's like, I've never done a show where people fell in love with the curriculum. So, let's focus on character. Sell me on great characters, and integrate the story and the characters, the curriculum, and the humor, all at once. Don't have a curriculum and throw some characters in at the end. And people are, they have trouble understanding that, but they, some of them, the real showmakers get that. And so I really, more than anything, if people pitch the characters first, I feel like, okay, this could work. And if they pitch the curriculum for a long time, I'm sleeping by the time they get to the characters. So people just, they want to show you that they really get that you're not, commercial, that your curriculum, and then they blow it by, yeah. So, it's still great character. What I have to then take the show and pitch it to all the people I work with. And they're just regular people, they're if you get them excited about characters, they get excited about those characters, and that's the show. So no, I think people get that we're different. They think we're way different, and we're really not that much more different than everyone else. But I could see if you're pitching where that would be confusing. So.
I think in all of the factual programs that we do for preschoolers, the underlying thing is always going to be education. It's always going to be informational. We do live, like wildlife documentaries we spoke about yesterday. We're doing, kind of science programs for preschoolers. But it has to be presented in an entertainment package if you're going to engage them. And I don't think that, we're always kind of careful to say, look, we don't have an educational remit, which we don't. At the same time, we're very cognizant of the fact that it is all learning when you're talking about preschoolers, but the overriding thing has to be kind of entertainment and engagement, and trying to find ways to make that fun for kids. Right. So it's a challenge.
Same for us, yeah.
Okay. So thanks, Linda, for letting our audience know how to keep you awake during a pitch. Yeah. That's very good. I've tried to make some notes with all the things you said. So the perfect show to sell to all of these people would be an optimistic, preferably hybrid animation live-action mixed preschool documentary. Long format, of course, with strong storytelling and, of course, curriculum. So anybody who has a show like that, please present it to these people. Yeah. Before we go on and talk about digital versus linear, first we're going to show on the big screen some footage about our panel yesterday at 3 o'clock in the morning at the karaoke show. You wish, right? Yeah. Okay, digital versus linear. Julia, I'm looking at you because you're Mr. Digital now.
That was so Kermit what you've done. You've got it.
Digital versus linear. How does France Télévisions handle this? How do you deal with the different... we've already heard from you that it offers opportunities, things you cannot do on the channel, you can do in the digital space. So how do you deal with this as a channel?
We don't see the versus.
Okay.
For us, it's really the perfect combo today. So, and in the kids' business, it's been a reality for years, in fact. Catch-up numbers are big for years. Kids are used to do it. They are the first adapters of new technologies, so it's already existing. It's not the future of TV. It's already what is television for kids today. So we see ourselves as proposing an ecosystem of videos, public service kind of videos, but available everywhere. And we make sure kids can find content, can play with it, can share it. Yeah. And it's, as I said yesterday, a world of new opportunities. And I think we are at the very beginning of it. And that the more the creative people who are doing the shows get aware of the new technological possibilities, the most modern transmedia proposals we will get, and the better we will be in the future.
Okay.
So we are waiting for new proposals of very digital, transmedia-oriented series without limits of formats, of duration, and of theme, in fact. Everything is now possible because we are not stuck in that old programming grid that was good in the 50s and that is not so good today.
Yeah. And from what you said earlier, I understand that the content that you show in the digital space is not necessarily the same content as the one you saw on TV, or is there a 90% overlap.
Well, we've shown that it's possible to make a big success on YouTube and to make a big success also on air and to sell the content. And it's all about finding good windows for your content. The most you are able to show it, the most generous you are with your content, the better it is for the property, because we are in an hyper-fragmented universe where kids get a ton of possibilities, and so you want your show to exist. And back 20 years ago, it was so different, and the programming people in the channel had a much more conservative position, and they were much more in the idea of just taking their show and just showing it 1 or 2 times. Now we are really in that hyper exposure dimension, and it's very good for building new brands.
Okay, interesting. Jeanette, for your channel, for S4C, it's also really, really important, and the numbers that you told us earlier were quite impressive. So how do you handle digital versus linear?
Well, in the past 4 years, I'm really excited about digital content and, well, I don't want to call them gimmicks, but you know what I mean, anything you can add to a project to get kids involved and to get them interested. So over the last 4 years since I've been there, I mean, we've done all kinds of things. We've had second screen, play along, apps, all kinds of things. And some of them have worked really well, and some of them have just been a little bit should we say, of a luxury in a way. The ones that have worked really, really well have been the apps that fit in with our brand. So, for example, the Q app is really popular, but also the Q counting app and the letters app, so with a kind of education or learning side to it. But they've done really, really well. And the things that are more difficult are standalone projects. We had a project about 2 years ago called Matron, which started off as an animation on the screen, a 10-minute animation. It was a story. And then the next 4 episodes were online as apps, and the apps were in a comic format with games as well. I mean, I played it here last year. But that's an example of something that was really cutting edge, really different. You get a lot of attention, for example, in the media papers for doing things like that. But in reality, what went on TV had good viewing figures, but the app wasn't really downloaded a huge, we're not talking about really big numbers. I can't remember the numbers actually, but so I think it's not exactly that I don't want to change that, but I think that we're moving more now towards trying to do other things, like, for example, short form. We're finding a huge amount of success with just putting clips, songs, jokes, just putting stuff out there on different platforms, using parents and Facebook and all kinds of things. And, of course, we have a Q channel on the YouTube Kids app. So you're sort of, rather than maybe trying to do specific digital projects just for trying to be at the cutting edge and maybe not doing them as well as you could, partly because of money, maybe because of time or whatever. But so I'm sort of shifting now to be doing more things like short form and just making sure that content is out there, and that's really, really popular and does very well. So and another thing we're doing as well is we're very interested in working, for example, with people like Minecraft. In Wales, around 30% of the children speak Welsh, and they all speak English. So obviously, anything that's on, on any other channel, they can watch that as well. So what's interesting about the digital space is that kids will quite often use Facebook or any kind of social media type thing if they're within the right age group and so. But they write in English, so they can be getting in touch with their friends and messaging them in English, and it's as if digital is English, even when they're Welsh speakers and their friends are Welsh speakers. So this is something we're sort of thinking about how we can try and influence. And one thing that we've been doing is we've been working with various companies and with the Eisteddfod and doing events where kids can come along and do their own Minecraft walkthroughs in Welsh. And then we'll put those Minecraft walkthroughs in Welsh up on our YouTube. So, we have these other concerns because we're a minority language. Another interesting concern as well would be if we're moving to Siri and all of this kind of, voice activation thing, it only works in English. Well, I mean, probably other major languages as well. So we're now talking to universities to see, what can we do to make sure that that works in Welsh? Because what we don't want is to have a whole new generation in Wales who think that anything digital and new is English, So that's something we're really, really trying to do quite a lot with, and it's very interesting area. I mean, I've got 2 kids. They speak Welsh, obviously, it's their first language, but they are always on Facebook in English. I just can't get them to change it. And it's the same with Instagram and so on. So it's very, very interesting. For older, slightly older groups, the teens, at a really big event recently, the Urdd Steddfod, we had 5 platforms for the first time, and we were broadcasting on Periscope. So it was Twitter, Facebook, Snapchat, Periscope, and Instagram. And because the kids in the Eisteddfod are up to 25, and this just absolutely took over. They were on the field. There was Wi-Fi on the field. It's a festival, and it was fantastic. There was all this stuff on Periscope and all things happening behind the scenes, and so we really need to get out there on these platforms and make sure that kids can somehow share content in Welsh as well, on different platforms. And that's all very interesting for us. So that's the slight shift, I would say, that's been in the last few years. Yeah.
Okay. How's PBS handling that, Linda? Is digital equally important as linear, or is linear still more important, or what's the priority there?
Digital has always been important at PBS, and that was one of the things that I really appreciated when I got to PBS, because in positions that I was in before that, digital was always presented as being ancillary, like it was a marketing tool. And when I got to PBS, what I really appreciated was that there was this sense that kids learned in different ways, and kids consumed media in different ways, and so you could look at sometimes the web was a better way for certain kids to consume media, because the games were more interactive, it was more personalized, and so we always had this sense that these things were equals, and that they worked best when the people behind them all worked together closely. So we started having people at that point, when they pitched a show, they had to pitch some ideas for their website as well. And at PBS, every show has its own web space, and frequently they have their own apps. And there are PBS apps now that sort of mirror the experience that was on the web, because more kids now are using apps than sitting at computers. So so we're just sort of shifting along with that. But what we found was that if we all worked together to develop the show and the site and any digital things, if we did it all together, and we made sure that the curriculum was sort of built in all the different areas, like the games would build on what you'd learn from the show and things like that. And then we started sort of getting into the whole transmedia approach. We sort of worked that into, so everything had to match up across platforms, and again more building and more thinking about the way different kids learn in different ways, and it all came together really nicely. And I think of the person who heads up digital really as sort of my duo partner at work. We do everything together. And we talk about things together. She and her department weigh in on the creative. We weigh in on what they're doing, and so it's really more of a team process. And honestly, it only works because we all get along. There's no sort of power thing going on. I think that it's been a little bit of a well, it's in some ways kind of a dream, because it works so well. My experiences up till that point had been really that you just battled for turf and, you know, you tried to kill the other people. And so it's, everybody's been so reasonable at PBS. And I've been there a long time right now, so it's not even like I'm still sort of in awe of it. Really more that it's just worked. It's worked because everyone's tried to make it work. So I've never, you know, taken the attitude that, you know, programming is the most important piece of this. You know, if anyone says that, it's someone from another department saying that. It wouldn't be us in programming. And, you know, we try not to even believe that. You know, we try to really believe that it's all equal and the end result is just a really positive media experience across platforms for our viewers. And so you know, we've taken that attitude. And I live in fear that someday my colleague in digital will leave and someone else will come in and say to me, I'm going to crush you, and it'll all be over at that point. But for now, you know, we're just working as a team, and it's really good. But that's really the only way you can do it and make it work, is to believe that you're all equals and that everybody's doing the same thing. The biggest shift for us really has been not making people come in with ideas for the website right when they come in to pitch the show. We've modified it. So now we let them develop the show and get the show to a really good point, but we keep the digital people involved in the development process the whole time. And that way, when it's time to do the digital, they can base it on certain episodes. Even in sort of the nascent phases of it, they can really be thinking about where it's going and be involved in that aspect of taking what they've learned from development into the digital stages. So that's actually worked better for us than making everyone come in and pitch everything at the same time.
Okay. Pauline, any bloodshed between digital and linear at RTE?
No, we're all great friends. Actually, we're all under the guidance of Sheila, she's the cross-divisional head, so we can't actually have faction fights at all. But one of the things that we're kind of finding is that we're probably becoming a little bit less precious about premiering on television. So, I mean, the fact that the audience really is finding stuff on the digital platforms and often finding it first on the digital platforms and wanting to consume it in bulk. We're kind of, as I say, getting a little bit less precious about the TV premiere and kind of have, you know, on one of our projects this year, Zig and Zag, we actually bundled 5 episodes on day one of transmission. We made 5 episodes available on the player and kind of promoted it as such, as a kind of a treat, with another short form series for 7 to 11s that we are starting in the new year. For a number of reasons. We are actually going to kind of give kids the first 10 episodes as a Christmas present, so over the holiday period they can have it first on digital. So we're getting a little bit less precious about that, and that I think is a good thing, because I mean essentially we're really trying to, because we have RT Junior has a radio station, you know, we have the website, we have the RT Junior app, which is probably doing even better. Like our television channel in May was up 28% on January to May in 2015. So that's kind of really good news for us. But the RT Junior app had, I think it was over 1 million page impressions for the month of May. So in a population of about 4 million, that's kind of significant. Wow. And you know, so that's one thing. I mean, we're also really conscious that, you know, we really need to target the parents, and we're looking at strategies and ways to use kind of Facebook and other social media platforms to try and bring parents to our content and bring it to them. But also through, you know, I mean, in our 7 to 11s, our flagship show is Swipe TV, but Swipe TV was developed by the producers as, you know, it is, they developed an app, the Swipe TV app, which houses all the short form content that they create and that we commissioned for that app. And it informs and affects how the television programme every week. It's 3 times a week, half-hour programme, but it actually, how kids are responding and reacting to the content that goes up on the app and becomes available to the app, and how they're, because it's two-way, they feed back to it. It informs how the producers shape the actual television iteration of it. So, you know, we're kind of consciously or constantly trying to just keep keep on the digital thing. It's our friend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it seems very clear to me that digital is no longer the little brother that you just have to drag along. How's that going at Chorus Theatre?
And Chorus is interesting because they've had an explosion of activity. But from my ABC experience, which was very digitally focused, I might just use a few insights from that. There needs to be a more coordinated approach, putting the audience at the centre. So a lot of activity, but not really thinking about how people use it. And the ABC are very lucky, and we follow in the footsteps of PBS and BBC very much. But there's no pressure of monetisation, so it makes it a lot easier to experiment. And ABC it's the number one priority is becoming a digitally relevant broadcaster and producer. It's moving, as you may have seen from some of the restructures recently, into a platform agnostic model. And kids, the ABC children's team is definitely leading the way in that. So the two areas that the learnings, I hate learnings, I can't believe I used that word, that we've really had over the last 12 months. Many people in this room have helped us streamline the rights model to be able to do all this too, is in distribution. So the key opportunity was VOD distribution for both preschool, which was all about convenience, but with older kids it was all about discoverability. So in both those demographics we've seen the circular relationship between how the content is distributed across platforms. So we see a direct result of kids coming back to the linear channel because of what we're doing in the VOD space. And it's just a given now. One day we'll stop talking about multi-platform distribution because it's just what we do. As long as the right structures of what we produce together keep up. I find that the things that I said, I'd like to do this, you can't. That still happens. But the more interesting area is the impact on content. So how these platforms and what we're doing is shaping the content that we're producing. So for ABC, we were doing original scripted commissions for iView, that was a dream. And that's just a given. It's built into content plans now for every genre at ABC that this original commissioning strategy for iView is really important. For the older kids channel, it's really interesting. We turned a hosting program, Studio 3, into a short form content unit because we looked at what kids were using on YouTube. It wasn't just the fact that they were watching YouTube, we know that. What did they want from YouTube that we weren't giving them? There was a lot about information and lessons about how-to videos particularly, and we thought we can get into that and we can do it with a public broadcaster approach. So that short-form content unit that's being formed now will actually produce content streams that can obviously be used anywhere, that's a given, but actually be reflecting the type of editorial, but better, that kids are looking at on YouTube. And the other thing that they're desperately trying to work out, which is a tough one, when does social media stop being just a promotional platform and it start also having an influence on the content we produce? So it's not about having additional short form bonus content. It's like, yeah, okay, but what do we do with it? Where does the audience want it and how are they going to use it? So, I would love to get that sensibility and platform agnostic approach into the Canadian system, but it's going to take a little while because we have monetisation pressures.
From my perspective, really, non-linear is full of opportunities, but it's also much more complex for everyone. For us broadcasters, but also for producers and creators, because things are going so fast and are being disrupted every 6 months. If you take social medias, children are using new ones every 6 months. So once you start understanding it, it's already over and they have moved to another one. So from my broadcaster casquette hat, I'm expecting the producers and creators not only to know very well the channel, and it's quite rare, to be honest, that when you go and pitch to a channel, you really need to know the programming grid, the lineup, the shows that are working, but you also need to know what kids in your country are up to. What social media they are using, how much do they use YouTube, what are the YouTubers they like a lot. So it's making it more and more complex, and what I like about it is you can't resolve it by yourself. You need to partner. And I think the future of our industry is all about that. It's all about partnering, finding the good people, the good talents that will help you to be more and more digital in the future and to be more and more strategic on all those new fields in the future.
You spoke about knowing your market and knowing your country. Now that Britain has decided to become an island once again, may I ask you a question, all of you? Just give me a percentage on how much of your content that you acquire or commission is local content. Start with you, Deirdre.
We have enormous local content percentages on the channels currently, even up to 70% on Treehouse. So obviously what we've been making and what we've acquired, which is quite low in the international acquisitions area, will change in the year ahead. I like that because I like to have a mix of content from countries all over the world. But we're still working through what that means, but you would anticipate that our local content needs will reduce from September 2017.
Jeanette?
I would say that we probably about 80% or so is local, and then with a lot of the acquisitions are also UK-based projects as well. So yes, a significant amount, yeah.
Okay, Pauline?
Our local content is down at around 32%, 33%. So I suppose that makes it really important for us to be telling Irish stories and reflecting Irish kids' worlds through our commission content and the projects that we don't just acquire. So, yeah, at the moment, it's unlikely that that's going to change. Budgets aren't growing at the moment.
Yeah, okay. What about you, Linda?
Because we have such a reliance on shows with clear curricula, that's really impacted how we approach acquisitions. So at the moment, virtually everything we have on our air was generated somewhere in the U.S., generally with us in mind, and with curriculum. Because if I tried to acquire curriculum-based shows, I wouldn't really find them, not in the way that we need them. So we do generate everything through PBS. The interesting thing about that is that there's no show that's only funded in the U.S. The majority of our shows do have co-production partners. They do run in a lot of other countries, and they're done really with to some degree an international market in mind. They're not made to necessarily be only American, but they are all generated in the U.S. and. I know that in the past there have been a number of British shows that have run on PBS, but at this point, I think what we're doing and what CBeebies are doing, they're fairly different. I think the only shows that I can think of are that we have that run in the UK are on CBBC, and I think it's Odd Squad and Arthur at this point. And I guess we all have Sesame Street, but different versions of it. So yeah, it's we skew pretty American.
And 60% of what we do is French and European. And talking of the future, we also believe that the more we have to face the titans who are developing content in the US, the more the public service, but not only, have to be local and European. So we believe in the future that could extend and that should extend, so that the French kids and the European kids have the opportunity to see different vision of the world and different ways to tell stories, and not only what's done in the States. So it's our mandate for the future of development of the industry.
So that really underscores our biggest challenge, which is we all have to be making local programming, and to fund it, we all have to be doing co-productions. So what now? How do we do that?
Let's leave that for another session. Interesting topic for next year.
But it is an opportunity, though, for us at a time where we're worried about all these doors closing internationally. It could end up being the children's industry that will celebrate openness internationally by making shows that travel and work locally. That's what I hope, I think. Yay! We've been talking a lot about that this week, so there's a sense of social responsibility to the future of children internationally, and it's going to happen here, I think.
So now, ladies and gentlemen, commissioners, the question everybody in the room is waiting for.
Got no money.
What are you looking for?
Turkey.
What are you looking for currently? Julia, we start with you.
We are looking for everything, preschool, kids. We are acquiring mainly. And we are also looking for specials who are doing very well on the channels. So that's for it. And Pierre and Tiffen for the children and kids unit are also looking for a show around women and girls. We have a big lack of that kind of show. So
you mean with female lead characters?
Female lead characters, yeah.
Okay.
And also something that comes from an idea that we stole to the BBC. We are big fans of Roy and Little Roy. So we are developing a mixed media new kind of content. So we are launching Seven Dwarfs and Me this December, which is our first hybrid animation live action series. And because we are in a way stuck in that animation quota, we are really happy to develop and to propose to our viewers that kind of new content.
Linda, what's PBS looking for currently?
Well, we've just premiered a couple of science shows. We've covered nature, we've covered space. We're now about to cover marine biology with the Jim Henson Company show, Splash and Bubbles. And after that, we have a couple of things coming up that cover areas like, as I mentioned, community is sort of a social studies kind of area, world cultures. We're doing something with informational text, which is nobody's touched that one yet, and it's a pretty tough one. But it's been an interesting challenge. It's a form of literacy that is about reading for information. So we're working on turning that into a narrative topic. So so given that those are the areas that are coming. If you have a particular passion that that's not one of those areas, we would be interested in hearing about it. We are pretty open. I mean, I really feel like producers will come up with better ideas than I will. So I've tried not to tell people what to do. I've tried just to be open, but just to say that there should be a curriculum along with all those other things that you need in a show. Funny is still important for us. As I mentioned at the beginning, we're still looking for shows that are humorous. So, just a sort of a spin on a curriculum that, makes for a funny show.
Pauline?
Well, we're looking for the older audience. We're open to, as I said, co-production, drama co-production opportunities. We also would love comedy. In our preschool end of things, we just commissioned a space series as well. We're all in the same zone, and science series and documentary series. ObDoc has worked really well for us for the RTE Junior audience. We've had great success with some of our ObDoc series, and would like to expand that. We're just starting into production on a series we've commissioned with diversity right at the centre of it, a documentary series called What Makes My Day. So, I mean, documentary and ObDoc and factual and FactEnt for under sevens is of interest for us as well.
Okay, thank you.
And great animation.
Always on the lookout for acquisitions, so I probably have about 7 or 8 animated shows a year. So looking for new ideas all the time. I'm commissioned actually up to 18 months, so we're looking at 2017, 2018. Comedy is always wonderful to get, either for preschool or most certainly for the children's audience, and that's always really important for us. One thing I haven't got, and I've been asking for it and I haven't really had a huge amount of response, is a kind of family format. Something I was a big fan of In the Smokehouse, for example, on CBBC show, where the kids, take over and we haven't come up with that kind of format, so I'd be interested maybe in talking about that. I mean, we only broadcast in Welsh, so in a way like you, we can't, I don't commission drama really. We don't dub live action into Welsh at all. So if you're not a Welsh language company, or if you don't know the producers in Welsh, then and you have an idea, then it's worth having a chat to see how you can move that forward. Or but do get in touch and have a chat.
Okay. What about you, Deirdre?
Don't worry, I won't go through that whole list again, but that's what I'd like. By August, we'll have a good sense of what we can move forward with. But from next year, we will be going to market with briefs. So it won't be a mystery anymore. We'll make sure that's a bit more formalised. But two areas of opportunity that I think we will prioritise would be fact dent with adult appeal. I look at something like Dengineers or Operation Ouch, which is my favourite show, works very well in Australia. You know, you watch that, you get adults watching that and loving it. So I think that's an area of growth, particularly for UK. The other thing is general entertainment with kid appeal. So you look at shows like Gogglebox and Goggle Sprogs. You know, no one's done that successfully in Canada, but, you know, programs like that that live in that adult general entertainment world but actually have extraordinary kid appeal. So I'd love, I mean, I know a few of them, but there's bound to be lots of really good ideas, whether it's in a quiz show format or more of the Gogglebox sort of model, but there's got to be something there that I think I'd like to find.
So what can our audience or the producers or creative people in our audience do to present their work to you besides running like maniacs to the pitch sessions after this and hoping they're one of the first and have the chance to talk to you? How do they approach you? Deirdre?
I would wait till August because then we'll have a better sense of what we can do. I'm a big emailer. I'm very bad on the phone, or sometimes I can pick up the phone, but we're still going through some structural change, so I'm just telling everybody and writing down my email address anyway, if you need it. Because we will eventually have more formalised processes of how we can get back to people really quickly. But bear with us for a little bit. Everybody's been extraordinarily patient, for which I'm very grateful.
Okay.
And for us,
Johnny?
yes, email or else have a look at our commissioning website. If you go to s4c.cymru, commissioning, you'll find out there what's available and who to contact and how. So that's the best way, really.
Similarly, we've a commissioning website, rte.ie, I think it's /commissioning, and an e-commissioning system. So we operate in a rolling round. So if you have ideas that you wanted to submit, you can do at any point. But we do, as we're kind of doing specific call-outs for specific genre or types, we put those up on the commissioning website as well, or through Screen Producers Ireland. I'm happy to take emails or just kind of, initial approaches or initial outlines of projects, which I can give a very quick, no, that's not what we're looking for, or yes, that's worth submitting. And the other thing is just on the animation side of the house, generally speaking, for animation, beyond just straight acquisitions, we do look for companies to partner with Irish animation studios. So for our commissioning budget from animation, we are really open to people who are coming with an Irish co-producer, and that the contact can be made through the Irish partner.
Okay. Is there on your website a section with Irish co-producers? Where do I find those?
Yeah, no, there isn't. But Animation Ireland has a brand new website, and it's just, I think, animationireland.com, but it lists all of its member companies and links to their websites. So it's really worth actually just kind of going and scooting around that website and just familiarising yourself with the animation studios in Ireland, what kind of projects they do, and who kind of is working in the same area, or whose work you like, and who you might like to partner with. And we're always happy to meet with.
Okay, thank you, Pauline. Linda?
I think the easiest thing to do is email, and especially since we're in the U.S. And I would suggest just sort of a short email to start with, and sometimes it can be as simple as just saying, I saw you at CMC. I have a show about X, and would love to send it. And then you'll get an email back from me, with sort of any direction of, okay, send it to this person, or yes, send it on, or we've got something just like that, but we're happy to take a look. And then you can send it. But I think it's important to make that personal connection first. I get a lot of emails from salespeople that start out, "Dear Lisa," and that unnerves me because that's not my name. So and then in the course of the letter, sometimes people forget to take out Nickelodeon and put in PBS, and so we think your show is our show is perfect for Nickelodeon, and I email back, yes, it is. Here's their address, send it to them. So and you're all laughing, but I'd say at least once a day I get an email that some person didn't really think through or didn't proofread, and it I sometimes hit delete, and other times I give it to the intern if it says Dear Lisa on it, and unless the person does know me and they really think I should be named Lisa, because it's not a bad name, but I think just making that personal connection really helps, and the personal connection usually gets a personal response, a really late personal response a lot of the time, and I apologize for that, but I at least will be able to take it, think about, is there anything else we could do to get together if this doesn't work? If it feels like I was sent the email as part of a mass mailing, I will sort of respond equally ambivalently. So. And I say this sort of along the lines of, if you take anything with you today, this is good advice, because people get it wrong a lot, and just think about what you're saying in the email, and then sometimes we'll move to the phone after, if the show looks like it's in an interesting direction for us, but email is I think a perfectly reasonable way to start.
Thank you, Lisa. Linda. Julien.
Email first to get a meeting with the acquisition team, mainly for international project, and then a proper meeting. They are attending any market all around the world, so all the Cartoon Masters, MIP, Kids Screen, they are there, so you should find them. If you don't know them, I'm happy to make the go-between and to help you to connect with them. We have also a team with distributing content as France Télévisions, and if you are looking for a service like that, I'm also happy to make the go-between for you. And that's all. And if you don't go to markets, they can do purely email communication.
Okay. I think it's time for some questions. Does anybody have a question for our Muppet friends on stage?
We never go backstage. In the Muppet Show, we go backstage every 5 minutes.
I know. Yeah.
Hello, my name is Sonia Copeland-Bloom, and I've got an animation on Buglebury. I would like to ask the commissioners, when they're thinking about content, how far there's sort of an anomaly. I mean, we all love animation, and we all know what good things it can do to influence children. But we also must realise, probably realise that every parent in the world, mothers and fathers, are very, very concerned that their children spend 7.5 hours a day in front of screens. And one of the best ways of children to educate children is for them to be spending time outdoors, playing in nature. Linda mentioned nature, but I just wondered how far, when you're thinking about content, you also are aware, that children must be outside. They must learn about the planet, mini-beasts, and the world, and how far that might reflect in the planning of your content, because animation's whole object is to fill children's hours on the screen, 7.5 hours a day, and only 30% have ever been on a country walk. 30% of children never go on a farm, and I think parents throughout the world, it's a very, very big problem for them, and I think all of us that have children, which is probably everybody in the whole might be here, are really concerned about that as well.
I believe the good thing is what you are saying back 10 years ago was quite difficult for us because we only had a TV box and it was difficult to switch off. And now we have apps, and on all our apps, the parents can decide when kids quit television and go in the garden. So technology helps us. But on a more general vision, I think the people who are on this stage all share the ambition to give more than just entertainment to children and to really educate, help them to live and help them to grow, and not only to spend hours in front of the television. I remember at some point Nickelodeon had made a kind of campaign, and they had a day where they were not broadcasting.
And they still do
They
a
still
lot
do
of
that.
pro-social work.
Yeah. To educate parents and kids about why it's important to turn it off.
But our goal is not at all to keep them in front of the TV all day long.
And it does impact the kind of programs that we commission. I mean, in programs that we're kind of just going into production on, it's people have come in with ideas on, like, we've one series called How to Do Everything, and it's teaching kids how to teach their dog how to fetch, how to find the North Star in the sky, how to whatever. So they're all about kind of teaching kids how to take skills and bring them to the outdoors. We had another series called Forest Force, which was all about how to build bark boats and race them down rivers. So actually what we're doing through the live action end of things is kind of trying to enthuse kids and get them to actually go and try stuff for themselves.
Yeah, we have the message in just about every one of our shows telling kids to go out and play. And we even have the show Nature Cat. The whole purpose of it is to show kids about nature and get them outside. And so we hear from a lot of kids about the stuff that they've gone outside to do. And that we think that's good. But at the very base of all of this, we have jobs to make shows. So we can't not do that. I think probably everybody's attitude is, we do make shows. Let's make the best shows possible, and let's encourage kids to go outside and to not watch TV all day, but to go outside and play. And to some degree, as you pointed out, the parents have a little bit of responsibility as well.
If I may add, the issue is not from us. Today, when kids spend 7 hours in front of a TV screen, it's mainly in front of Minecraft. And you have many data on that. And all that new trend of watching other kids playing video gaming, it's really something that is time consuming. But technology allows parents to control that. So it's a common responsibility between the people who are doing content online and the parents, and probably public service will have at some point to help parents to well understand that. But it's a key point, and it's not only from our side.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think that as children's media partners, we're responsible of making good content available, and it's still the responsibility of the parents to make sure that children have a variety of activities. Thanks for your question. Anybody else? I can't see anything, so.
Yeah. Hi. I spoke to Pauline just mentioned earlier that RT do radio content. I wondered if any of the other broadcasters had plans to either increase or introduce audio output.
Anybody care
ABC
to?
certainly does. ABC's looking at audio. I mean, it helps with a broadcaster that has an enormous radio heritage. So, there's multiple radio networks as part of the ABC remit. So it makes sense for them to work out how we could get into either radio stations for families, but also audio. So I think that's a growth area for them. Chorus has a really significant radio presence too, but it tends to target younger audiences. But I'd love to get my some ideas in there about what we could do in radio. I think it's really important. So, and podcasting particularly has got so much potential for parents and kids. So it's a good idea. At Chorus, it's early days, so there's not much I can do now, but you'd be tapping into the ABC Children's area and ABC Radio itself, because give me 6 months.
Okay, I think we have time for one last question here. The gentleman in the front, maybe, who's been sitting with his arm up for a very long time.
He always has very good questions.
One of the things I'm always fascinated by when I speak to kids, I spend a lot of time with kids, especially at the slightly older age, is how much adult or grown-up content they're consuming. 9-year-olds watching The Walking Dead, stuff like that. And I'm just curious from you guys, from a positive perspective, if there's trends or creative trends in grown-up primetime stuff that you're interested in bringing into kids. If you're seeing interesting things, like, us as adults, what we're watching, if there's things you're interested in bringing into kids programming in terms of storytelling techniques or trends.
It's so true that they don't watch only what we do for them, and at no point they think that there is somebody who is doing content for them in the morning and somebody who is doing something else in prime time. So in France we have a lot to do on that to make sure that it goes well from one block to the other. In the industry, you can really see the influence of TV reality in the way live action is done, and I think it's good. I think it's good that we use the same kind of tools than our colleagues in prime time. I'm a big fan of what the BBC has done on the new iPlayer version, the BBC iPlayer Kids version, where you don't have any boundary between the family content that is in prime time and what is done in daytime. Doctor Who, and it's true that in the UK also the creative people can go from prime to day, from my understanding, quite easily, which is very different in France. So I think we have no interest in building boundaries between those two, and that it will be also new opportunities everywhere.
I think to be creatively ambitious around scripted, so you can have something that is a little bit more experimental and much lower cost, but also those big high-end pieces. Why aren't we doing family shows? Why aren't we making the next Merlin? We should be doing that because we're actually the experts at that. It's just my old beef. But the other thing I think that why they're going to those shows is they're looking for shared experience. So when we talk about family content, I've spent years sitting there, what does that mean? And you think, I think it's sitting around a dinner table. So your 9-year-old son can talk to their dad about, or a brother about why they like Walking Dead. So it's the characters, or it's the casting, or there's something that they feel they can share with people that are older, or members of their family. And you see them going to the shows that are talkable, and so when I see a family concept, I thought, would somebody sit around the dinner table talking about the new Doctor, or or the Bachelorette, or something like that? It's a good benchmark to use, but I think we need to start owning that space because we're very good at it.
It's like in the kids department, we don't have access to the first channel, to RTE1, and we're in our little slot on the second channel, RTE2, which is multi-genre, and it becomes from 7 o'clock on. It's adult. But in latter years, I've been trying to kind of pitch to the RTE1 controller for family slots in the early evening on the weekends, just because actually if you're making good family game shows, and some of the quiz formats or game show formats that we do, like you could really see them working for a family audience around tea time. And, I'm trying to pitch to kind of not be ghettoised into kids' programmes. The other interesting thing was when we did audience research for RTE Junior quite recently, we're massive amongst the 55 to 75s. And we're trying to kind of figure it out. I'd say some of it is, kind of grandparents, minding younger children and stuff. But I think a lot of it is just the kind of the gentle and, the content that we have, programmes like Our Farm, the Abdoc series. I think that, older generations really just respond to it. It's really nice and kind of, gentle in the context of kind of, a lot of the, the harsh, more cynical programming on the adult channels. They just enjoy it. So, yeah, I think, kind of going after family stuff. The other thing is that children, it's really funny, just when you're talking about the children being influenced by adult formats, when you go out to make a program with children, they're actually queuing up to do their post-event kind of interview, their thoughts on how they felt it went. And, they're really, really kind of savvy about reality formats and, like, what's expected from them and the kind of language to use and that. So, like, they really are, they're just, they don't see it as kind of, as adult programs and kids programs. They just see it as entertainment or programming.
Absolutely.
And, and they want to interact with that as well.
Okay, thank you.
Same here, with the family shows and so on. I mean, I think there's a lot of scope there. And sport and soaps always have been so, intergenerational, really.
But if you think about it, the opposite way, binge viewing, which is a big trend for all the industry, comes from kids. the first programming schedules, we were doing binge viewing sessions, back-to-back episodes, where our programming reads. And now it's the way SVOD is done. It's the way the big programming people in networks are working also. So
there you go, kids television makers or kids television programmers as trendsetters. That's what these people are, trendsetters. I would like to thank my panel. I would like to thank all of you for listening to us. I'm glad Miss Piggy didn't hit anyone. I'm glad Animal didn't freak out. And I'm glad that Beaker actually for the first time ever made some sense, because normally he just said beep, 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 right? Thank you very much for coming and enjoy lunch.